Welcome to the Real Estate Strategies Podcast, a place for conversations that matter in order to obtain infinite wealth. I'm your host, Ken McElroy. This show is meant to keep you updated on what is going on in real estate while getting you on track to have infinite wealth and financial freedom. This episode, as well as all the others, can be downloaded on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and various other platforms so that you're able to listen on the go. To get my weekly newsletter where we keep these conversations going and explore the trending topics in real estate today, please go to www.kenmcelroy.com/news. Let's dive into today's episode. Hey guys, it's Ken, and I'm here with George Gammon. As you guys know, we just got done with this great event in Miami, and now this is promoting the next one, which is going to be in January. Hey George, what's happening?
I tell you what, we just had an absolute blast in Miami. I was completely blown away by the crowd, completely blown away by the speakers. It could not have gone any better. And I'm just so excited right now. I'm bursting. And the fact that we're going to be able to do another one in January with some of the same speakers, some maybe a little different. I just can't wait. This exceeded my expectations. And January is going to be just as amazing.
Yeah. And, I tell you, when we were first talking about doing the first one, when you were saying, I'm going to Miami, I'm going to find a hotel and I would put this together. I mean, congrats to selling that thing out just to, really, really quickly. Because I know with the COVID, the hotel kind of said you can only have so many people, and then they increased it, and then you saw that again. And so this second Rebel Capitalist Live is kind of a result of the demand that you've seen, because it was quick.
It was really quick. Yeah, we sold out way early. I had to stop the ticket sales maybe, I think like a month in advance. Bottom line, Kenny, is there are a lot of Rebel Capitalists in the United States. A lot of people are fed up with what's going on. And a lot of people viscerally understand that there's a problem with our economy. The system is not what it seems. And they understand that they need to be prepared for the future. If you're not prepared, you're going to be a victim. And fortunately, I think there's a lot of people, I refer to them as the rebel capitalists, that see the big picture. And they understand that they need to educate themselves. And there's no better way to educate themselves than to go to a live event where you can meet the experts like yourself, or Jeff Snyder, Brent Johnson, face to face, and actually get to interact with them and ask them questions. And I think as human beings, there's no substitute for that. You can do 100 Zoom videos, and that's great, but it just doesn't have the impact, doesn't have the power that meeting these experts face to face. Not only that, but your fellow rebel capitalists. I mean, that's fantastic too, just hanging around like-minded people that really want to build and grow their wealth in a world of out of control central banks and big governments. And they want to increase their freedom, their liberty. You can hang around with a lot of your friends, and maybe they're kind of on the boat, or they're not. Maybe they're more of the quote unquote normies, or your friend and family member, Fred, as I refer to them on my YouTube videos. But it's just such an awesome reprieve to go somewhere and you kind of get inspired to take what you're doing to the next level. And, it's just why I love these live events. And again, it's why I'm so excited about January.
I know. So guys, the website just went live a couple days ago. So not get, right. So we got to make sure.
The same URL, but we got the new ticket sales up there for the January event. So that's rebelcapitalistlive.com. There's, the price is a little lower if you sign up at the beginning, and then every couple months or so, it increase in price a little bit. So you kind of have an early bird special. And let's keep in mind, everyone, that the first one we did sold out a month prior to the actual event. And I cannot even tell you, Kenny, how many people emailed me or direct messaged me on Twitter asking if they could somehow buy a ticket. George, can I please get a ticket? Come on, please, please, please. I just got off work and all these. And I had to tell them that unfortunately we were at max capacity. I've got to cut it off to be fair to the people that have already purchased their tickets. So make sure that if you're thinking about going, take action, go to the website, get your ticket now, and so you don't lose your place.
Right. Good. Can't wait to see the next one, George. And congrats on an amazing event, too. And for all of you guys, make sure you go there now. If you're interested, just sign up, because this thing will sell out again, just like the first one. So, George, as always, thank you.
And you're going to have an opportunity to meet Mr. Ken McElroy. That right there is worth the cost of admission, right?
Can you first of all, thank you for putting one on in the, where a lot of people are still kind of dealing with this COVID and the shutdowns and all that stuff. And I know you're in Florida and this is in Miami. Can you kind of talk about the goal of the conference overall and why you decided to do it in June?
Part of that is because I felt from a social standpoint that it was really needed. I mean, people have been locked up. I'm in Florida right now. And you're in Arizona. It's not too bad in Arizona. It's fantastic, relatively speaking, here in Florida. In fact, I just got back from Whole Foods, no mask requirement at Whole Foods. So that tells you how free it is here in Florida. But I know a lot of states are not like that. And we are the exception to the rule. And back when I first started planning it, of course, there were a lot more restrictions even here in Florida with the local businesses. So I thought, most people are accustomed to meeting with their friends, meeting in a social environment. That's how we operate as human beings. And so everyone was like, oh, well, let's do a Zoom conference. Let's do something on Skype. Or I'm like, no, that's just not going to work. So I luckily found a hotel that was pretty lenient on the mask requirements. That's the Hilton in Miami. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's make this thing happen. And pretty much every speaker I talked to echoed that sentiment that, hey, thank you for doing this, because I cannot wait to finally get back to an event where I can actually meet people, shake their hand, have a drink, do selfies and all this stuff that we really enjoy doing. But above and beyond that, I think we're really living in unprecedented times, not just with what we've been dealing with as far as what I call the cerveza sickness, the virus and whatnot, but also from an economic standpoint, I think we've never seen anything like this. And taking it to the next step, I think that is going to bleed into some problems that we may see in society at large, because what we've done, Ken, in my opinion, is I don't even think you could say in my opinion. I think it's pretty much, it is what it is.
Fact.
Yeah, it's fact now. We start off with a very simple economy. And what I use in my whiteboard videos is just someone who raises cattle, another person grows corn, another person grows cotton. And let's say these are the only things that are required in this little community. Well, if they're producing more than they consume, what that means is that other people in the community don't have to produce their own cows. They don't have to produce their own cotton. They can do other things. They can become a doctor. They can become a teacher. They can start their own YouTube channel, because they don't have to go out there and plow the fields every day to grow their own food. And it's kind of a simple idea, but it's applicable to a large economy. I don't care whether it's 19th century or 21st century. That's the way it works. You produce goods and services, you produce more than you consume, and society as a whole benefits, and the standard of living increases as a result. And then what happens if you want to sell off some of the shares of your farm? You can go ahead and do that. If someone wants some equity, they can buy into that, and then you can use that money to reinvest back into some equipment and then produce more corn than you were before with the same amount of people. And then you feed even more individuals, productivity rises, right? So that's how the interaction between the businesses, let's say, and the stock market in this case, or the banking system, if they could have used debt to do that same thing. But what we've done is we've completely distorted the way this works. And a great example I can give you is a hot air balloon. So imagine that we've all seen them, on Sunday mornings or something like that. These big hot air balloons that just go up, and they've got this little teeny weeny basket at the bottom, right? Well, and I know that basket is going to go wherever that balloon goes. So if the balloon goes up, so is the basket. If the balloon goes down, the basket's going along for the ride. The way we used to operate in a healthy economy, that air balloon would be the real economy and the basket would be the financial economy. Financial, like the stock market, like housing and whatnot. But unfortunately, because of the Fed pushing inflation and turning everyone into a speculator and a gambler because they can't save their money, because they lose purchasing power, because the interest rate that they get in the bank doesn't keep up with the pace of inflation. So in order to maintain their purchasing power, in other words, their excess productivity, they have to gamble, or they have to lever up and go into real estate or something like that. So what's happened is the hot air balloon has gone from being the real economy, producing goods and services, to the financial economy, being asset prices, right? And the basket now is the real economy. So if the air balloon is going up, meaning asset prices, well, that's okay. That's going to take the economy along with it. But if it comes crashing down, then the economy tanks as well. And that puts us into a very precarious position. And the reason why is because not everyone owns assets, right? I mean, Ken McElroy, you own assets. George Gammon, we own assets. But if I talk to the 20-year-old or 25-year-old Ken McElroy that might have had $250,000 in student debt, you don't own any assets. You've got huge liabilities, right? So you can't afford to participate in the wealth creation that's going on around you because you have to own assets. You have to gamble to do that. And it creates this big boom bust cycle. Well, what happens is the Fed now realize, and the government, I think, I don't know that they're that smart, but some people in the Fed, they realize how this works. And they realize that they have to keep the music playing. They have to keep pushing air, more and more air, into that hot air balloon. And that is the creation of dollars, right? So, but then again, what that does is that exacerbates that gap that you have, the wealth divide. And if you just study history, you realize that the bigger that wealth gap gets, the higher the probability that you have social unrest, you have looting, or the types of things that we saw in 2020 that I think are just going to continue, and unfortunately, most likely will get worse. And the Fed and the government are backed into a corner because they have to keep the monetary heroin going. To use a term from our good buddy Peter Schiff, that the economy, they've created this economy that's addicted to not only quantitative easing, but all of this government stimulus. So you can't pull back that stimulus. And like a drug, you have to give the economy more and more and more of the stimulus that it needs, or else that hot air balloon deflates and the whole house of cards comes crashing down. So they have to produce ever more and more and more dollars. They have to pump them into the system. And that's creating just a massive amount of economic distortion, malinvestment, and a misallocation of resources. And unfortunately, the economy, like the drug addict, the only cure is to take away the drug, but it has to go through those withdrawals in order to get back to a point where it's healthy. And whether we do that through a huge inflation or deflation, I'll leave that to your viewers to decide.
Yeah. So, wow, that's a lot of stuff. Thank you. So I know early on they were talking about what kind of a recovery is this, if it's even a recovery. And right. We talked about, one of the things that resonated with me was this K-shape, because it does feel like the wealthy, with asset prices. Because I was on with Peter Linneman this morning, actually. He spoke to YPO and he basically said all money chases asset prices, just like you said. And so that's pushing the K part up, but it's the lower part of the K, as you said, this gap in between, right. That's going to be the real issue. What do you think is going to happen with that?
Well, I think it's fourth turning stuff, what Neil Howe talks about. And it's just going to create more social unrest, like we were saying, but it's also going to create a bigger, a larger amount of divisiveness, I think is the best way to say it. And I know, looking back at 2020 and where we are today with politics, and I mean, it's crazy. Nowadays you can tell how someone votes just by if they're wearing a mask outside.
I know.
Right. We've taken it to that level, right? So
that might have been the point.
Exactly. And maybe that was the objective, right? So what happens when you get society that is just, beating on each other? Yeah, polarized, great word. But it's getting bigger, right? What happens when that divisiveness increases over time? And I was listening to a podcast with Neil Howe the other day on Real Vision, and he was saying, Ed Harrison, I believe, was interviewing him, and he said, Neil, have we ever been at a point like this before in the United States? And he says, yes, based on his studies, we've been there twice. One was at the revolution, right when our country was formed, basically. So you had a lot of rebellion, a lot of contention, you had a lot of fighting. And then number two is just prior to the Civil War. So that's right. So if we're at a point in society right now that echoes what we've seen in the past with a civil type war, if you want to call it that, I'm not suggesting that we're going to have a civil war in the United States, but I am suggesting that we're on a very slippery slope right now. And unfortunately, the only thing the Fed and the government can do is continue to make the problem worse. Because see, the problem is the wealth divide, the wealth gap we were referring to. And the only trick they have up their sleeve is to increase asset prices. And now whether they do that in nominal terms or just real terms, that's a whole different question. But if they're doing that just in nominal terms, again, that makes the problem, that social problem that we have, far worse. And, I don't know how that ends, but I do know that's something that people should be thinking about.
Yeah. So guys, jump onto George's channel, jump onto Rebel Capitalist Live, because you're not going to want to miss the next one. I'm sure this is going to grab some pretty good momentum. George, thanks again. I appreciate you always, and I cannot wait to see you soon. You're coming to Phoenix soon, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to see you in Miami, then I'll see you for a long time in Phoenix. So looking forward to hanging out.
Yeah, for sure, George. Thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.